Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I'm going a little bit deeper on the new TELLARKNIGHT cards that were released. You guys know I have been screaming for TELLARKNIGHT support for probably like a year and a half, 2 years. It's been number one on my list every time I've made my videos that are pretty much like top 5 or top 10 archetypes that need support. Really badly. It just made the most sense. It's going to make KONAMI money. It's going to help them sell the set. The players love this archetype. They have nostalgia for competitive players, nostalgia for just, not even nostalgia, but just anybody who loves warriors. Like Space Warriors is just like, Space Knights is like so cool. It just makes perfect sense. But we got these revealed earlier today. I literally woke up and went straight downstairs, recorded the video, then went upstairs and went back to bed for 3 hours. So I was not fully in the best headspace. I've had a little bit more time to think about these cards over the course of the last couple hours, half day or so, and I want to go a little more in depth on these cards individually because while I do think the support is cool, there are a couple of odd things as far as like how they decided to make decide on these cards' effects that kind of made me go like, that is weird. So we're going to be going through that. So we're just going to go through them one by one. I'm going to talk about, I'm kind of going to nitpick them a little bit. Now keep in mind, preface this by saying TELLARKNIGHT needs support. We got support. I think at worst, this support is decent or solid, however you want to put it. And so we're going to nitpick it because I think the support isn't quite insane. It's still like one like specific type of card away from being like insane, but I still think it's decent or solid at best, so don't get too down even though I'm kind of nitpicking these cards. I just want to kind of talk about how I think KONAMI might have missed the mark a little bit on some of these effects because it would have been like just such small minor changes that would have like put these cards in the exact place they needed to be. So let's start off with the first one, and maybe the best one, to be honest, as far as exactly what TELLARKNIGHT's needed. TELLARKNIGHT Lyra. This is a level 4 light warrior effect monster. We know all this counts as a constellar, whatever. That actually does matter with like the Exceed and stuff. 2 effects. The first effect pretty much says if a TELLARKNIGHT or constellar other than another copy of Lyra is normal summoned to your field, it special summons itself from the hand. Now, just nitpicking this first effect already, this is awkward. It definitely is, especially where like something like Deneb can search this card. But if you normal Deneb and search this card will miss its opportunity to trigger because Deneb's effect to search is in a different chain than its actual normal summon. Unfortunately, this card isn't going to be able to just summon itself immediately. So summoning it there, like searching it there, it's kind of just stuck in hand kind of awkwardly, which you don't love. So you kind of have to like hard open this or summon it off of Skybridge or like Rhoda for it, you know what I mean? Consistency card for it. So taking away that specific instance means that Deneb is not a 1 card rank 4, unfortunately. And that's kind of weird. That's kind of a weird place to be honest. So yeah, just a little bit weird there. But that's mostly it. It's mostly like this card could have just been better if it said, if you control a TELLARKNIGHT monster, you can special summon this card from the hand. That would have just been cleaner. That would have been easier. And it would have made the card more reliable as far as working with stuff like Deneb. Secondly, if this card is summoned, you can add 1 TELLARKNIGHT spell from your deck to your hand. Again, another weird one I have to nitpick. I think both these effects are decent, but they could have just been a little bit better to make the deck flow a little bit nicer. And that's a big thing I like to focus on, especially with decks I like, is I want cards that are flexible, cards that work in a bunch of different spots and get you to multiple different parts of your deck. A lot of utility. That is just my thing as a player. This effect definitely missed a little bit for me because I love that it's summoned. Doesn't have to be special or anything, so you can just normal this. Boom, search a spell. This card's still a +1 straight up. It gets you 2 Deneb, so it's kind of just like 3 more copies of Deneb, which is great. But here's the thing: 1, this only searches a TELLARKNIGHT spell there, and secondly, it's only spells, not spells or traps. So one of the biggest cards in the entire archetype that, with this new support, it kind of just appears like KONAMI just forsook this. What's the word? What's like past? Whatever. Has forsaken Stellar Nova Alpha. This card does not have TELLARKNIGHT in the name. It only has Tellar in the name, and it's a trap, so it's not searchable by both of those accounts. And this was one of those cards where I was like, this was one of the best cards back when this deck was good in whatever 2015 or whatever, and now it just sits here and it's like, do we even play this card? I'm not convinced we even play this card anymore. With how fast the game is, and a counter trap like this unsearchable, I don't know if we even play it. Maybe you just play hand traps because, hand traps, like, they're just faster. They help you not lose going second as hard. Like, I don't know. I really think there's a world where we just don't play alpha at all anymore because you just can't access it. So it's really, really weird there. Now, if they had given us, or if they do give us, like, a new quick play spell that's actually just, like, a decent interruption, then this card becomes crazy. If it just gets us an interruption, it's awesome. It absolutely elevates what this card means for the archetype, which they could do. Maybe they're just trying to steer away from Stellar Nova Alpha. I totally get it. So many archetypes have a counter trap. Maybe they're trying to steer away from every archetype having their own, But for right now, doesn't make sense to me. Not at all. So, yeah, still a really good card. I have to nitpick these effects a little bit. They're still good, though. Moving on, Tellarknight Altea, another warrior, obviously level 4, counts as a Constellar. 2 effects as well. If this card is summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of light and dark Exceed monsters you control. Destroy them. First things first here, this card is okay. It's not amazing. Unfortunately, I wish this card just said if this card is summoned, target 1 card on the field and destroy it, to be honest, because that would have meant that, like, just normal summon Lyra, boom, is an interruption, right? But the fact that you need, if you ever want this card to be interruption, you have to either have him engrave and special summon a Tellarknight on the opponent's turn, or a Constellar, or you have to Skybridge on the opponent's turn with a monster other than an Exceed that you also control. That way, when this card hits the field, you have at least 1 Exceed so that you can pop a card. That's really the only way this card becomes an interruption. Now, it is still really nice to have a more main deck option to be able to remove stuff from the field, because, like, otherwise you have to get to Trevere or Deltaros to kind of have any form of removal in the deck. So that's definitely a nice addition to have, like, a main deck way to do it. But yeah, just to nitpick this one, you do kind of need a good amount of setup because you have to get to an Exceed for this to be not only an Exceed, but an Exceed plus another body on the field to kind of make this an interruption off of Skybridge. So not terrible, but again, like, could have been a little bit cleaner there. And the other effect, if a Tellarknight or Constellar monster other than Altea is special summoned to your field, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, but you can't declare an attack for the rest of the turn except Exceeds. Not a big deal. This effect I like. I think this one's cool. I think it could have been normal or special summon. I mean, I guess it's funny because the other one's only on normal and this one's only on special, the way they extend themselves. I just don't think it's decent, and this is going to be the most, if you're only going to pick one or the other, this one would come up obviously a lot more. But yeah, I don't love that. You kind of need to have a hand that's able to play to be able to get this card back and back onto the field so you can trigger its first effect. So yeah, it's fine. I think it's decent. I mean, obviously they could have made this like a crazy effect where it's like, if you control a Tellarknight Exceed monster or something, quick effect, you can special summon this card. And then obviously that would trigger the first effect. Like, obviously that'd be crazy. But, I understand why they didn't go that route. That's really, really strong. I still think this card's pretty solid. Definitely not a 3 of in the deck, because you really don't want to see it in hand that bad. But maybe a 1 of or a 2 of. Honestly, maybe even just a 1 of, just because he doesn't even banish himself when he leaves the field. So you just want to get him in rotation and just keep getting him engraved so that he can just keep coming back and popping cards. That's pretty good. So yeah, like small nitpicks, mainly just on the destruction effect for him. But yeah, still could have been a little bit better there. Then we move to the new Exceed monster, Tellarknight Constellar Caduceus. This one I actually don't hate much at all. I think this card's crazy. If it's Exceed summon, you can target a Tellarknight and or Constellar card in your graveyard, add them to hand. So that's and or. So you can target a Tellarknight card and a Constellar card engrave and just both right back to hand. That is just a straight up +2. That's insane. Also keep in mind that the 2 new monsters, they count as Constellars. So them plus any Tellarknight card you're just adding back to hand is really, really great. I know you usually don't want to add Altea back, but you could if you wanted. So that effect is really, really sweet. I like that a lot, especially for a deck that is resource-oriented. Adding back 2 is crazy. And then the second... Oh, the only thing, though, also with this is that somebody had mentioned to me, like, oh, John, like, what if there's a cool combo where you use, like, Unical High to dump Nova Alpha and then make Caduceus, and Caduceus can add back the Tellar Nova Alpha, like, all in one turn. Boom, you searched it, essentially, by sending and adding it back, because it's so free. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. One, Unical High only dumps, again, Tellarknight cards, not Nova Alpha. And same thing with Caduceus, it only adds back Tellarknight cards, which is just such a bummer. Again, like, if they want to give the deck, like, a new trap that's, like, actually good and has Tellarknight in the name, I love it. Or, obviously, a quick play spell becomes even better because it's, like, searchable off Lyra. But yeah, still awkward there. And the second effect, banishing a Tellarknight or a Constellar from hand or deck and attaching material to pretty much copy that monster's effect when it's summoned is crazy, right? Altair, reborning something. Just reborning a monster. Altea, just popping cards on the field. At least popping one card on the field. Lyra, searching a spell. Deneb, searching a monster. The utility on this is, like, pretty insane. You can even add 2 monsters back and then use Banish Vega, special one from hand. Like, honestly, this effect is, like, so... I mean, this card's really good. And plus, because it copies the effect, you can even activate a card that's already activated. So if you've already searched a spell off Lyra, you could just banish another copy of Lyra from the deck, search another spell. Absolutely bonkers. This card's really good. I don't really have much to complain about it other than the fact that, like, combined, this and Lyra kind of just have forsaken Stellar Nova Alpha. And then we have the final card here, Tellarknight Constellar. Gotta love it. It's got both names in it. Again, a card with both names, so you can add, this can be a Constellar card as long as you add another Tellarknight in grave. Just sweet. But it's a continuous spell, which is interesting. 2 hard once per turn effects, pretty much. When this card resolves, special summon a Tellarknight or Constellar from hand or grave. That's really good. I like that this doesn't target, so that way, you know, if somebody has something like a Bestial in hand and they're going to banish something from grave, if you had another target in grave or just anything in hand, you could also just summon those. So that's really good. It's just a monster reborn for the deck. I really like that. The only downside of this card is, like, it kind of needs you to be able to play a little bit, right? So, like, that's kind of the downside of it. But, you know, as long as you can just get any Tellarknight engraved, this card becomes, like, a nice extension piece. Not only that, but, like, the fact that it's a continuous is also nice because of Trevere, right? Trevere is such an awesome card for this deck as it gets into the grind game. So every time you're making Trevere, you're bouncing this card back, you're activating it again, and you're just summoning more Tellarknights. It's really good for that. And then the other effect essentially just allows you to special summon like pretty much rank up into a higher rank Tellarknight or Constellar monster. So Pleiades, Constellar Diamond, M7, a couple of different really good utility cards right there. In fact, I think like Pleiades becomes really good because that's just not only removal, but it's every turn, and he's a big body, which you love. Yeah, this card's really sweet. So definitely not as... Definitely don't hate this card too much. Really, my only gripe on this card is just it kind of needs you to be able to play. I mean, I guess it still pulls stuff out of the hand, and for a deck that could potentially have more normal summons than you really want, because like outside of like pretty much exactly Vega and the new one, Lyra, all of them, all the Tellarknights are like normal summons, pretty much. So you could be on, 9 normal summons. So this card still helps with that quite a good deal. Again, not sure if this is the 3 of. I think Skybridge is really the only spell I'm looking at as a potential 3 of for the Tellarknight lineup. But still a really good card. 1 of, 2 of, probably a 2 of if anything. Although maybe it's just a 1 of. You can add it back off of Caduceus. You can bounce it back with Trevere and just keep activating it. This card might just be an actual 1 of because you can just loop it so crazily. And yeah, I think that's one thing they've maintained with the deck. Not only maintained, but they even pushed to the next levels. This deck's ability to set up a grind game. But again, I still have questions about how fast is the deck. That'll be the biggest question going forward. So we'll have to see if it can hold up. Again, I think maybe there's a world where we just say, screw it. Maybe we just don't play traps. Maybe you play a Floodgate or 2 just because they can still be okay going second. And obviously you're like blowouts going first at times. But maybe you just play harder on hand traps, right? Bestial seem to have pretty good synergy with the deck. So that way you can like Bestial your opponent next turn, make Trevere, and bounce the Bestial. That way you can fire it again. Like that's pretty sweet. So there's definitely some openings there as well that I think are interesting, but obviously we'll have to see. So all in all, again, at worst, the support to me is still like a B. At worst, like maybe a B minus. But they could have been A pluses, right? And I think the biggest one, honestly, is Lyra. This card could have been a 10 out of 10, and I think it ended up being more like a 7 out of 10 for the archetype. And that's really the difference between B and A plus in the grand scheme of things. But all in all, I'm not upset. I'm still very, very excited to mess with this deck. I don't even care if it's like barely rogue. I'm still going to hard grind this deck for sure, because this is just one of my favorite decks of all time. I love the way it plays. I love their art, everything. So there you go. Those are my deeper thoughts, my more in-depth thoughts about the new support. Just because I kind of skimmed over it real quick in the video earlier because we had like 15 to 20 cards to go over there. So kind of had to make it quick. But yeah, all in all, I'm happy. And I want to know your guys' thoughts down below, specifically on Tellarknight stuff. Where do you land on it? Are there anything that you think I might have missed that I didn't mention here in the more in-depth talk about the Tellarknight cards? I want to know your thoughts on that stuff there. But I'm out of here for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff from me. I might try and make a little combo video messing around with the new cards, just doing like some basic, like right out the gate, messing around with some combos to see what some of these 2-card combos can do once these cards are uploaded onto EDO Pro. But yeah, so look forward to that potentially, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.